Down for 5 straight months in the world's second largest economy. Separately, one of China's biggest property developers announced record losses, one piece of a major crisis in that sector there. Here's Nick Marsh, Asia business correspondent with our newsroom partners, the BBC.
Another month, another set of worrying figures in China. This time round, the numbers were fractionally better than expected, but ultimately they still show that demand for Chinese goods from abroad is poor. And for an economy that relies on exports, that's not good news. But there are deeper problems still. Since lifting tough zero-COVID restrictions at the end of last year, China's seen record low economic growth, record youth unemployment, and falling prices. Worse still, the country's housing market, which used to be worth a third of China's entire wealth, has collapsed. It's made households poorer, and the post-pandemic spending boom, seen in most of the rest of the world, hasn't materialized.
That was Nick Marsh with our editorial partner, the BBC. The Venerable Consumer Price Index is one guide to inflation. The very tapped-in team at the Federal Reserve also likes to watch a government number called the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index. Many investment decisions appear to be on pause this morning until the August number comes out shortly. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer is here with more. Nancy, what does this PCE thing measure?
It looks at prices consumers are paying for goods and services, but the PCE also covers money spent on behalf of consumers. So if you go to the doctor's office, it includes your copay, plus if you have insurance, what your insurance company or Medicare or Medicaid pays. Also, the PCE can change as people substitute away from some goods and services toward others. So if, say, beef gets really expensive, people might start buying chicken instead.
All right, versus the other thing, the Consumer Price Index, which uses what?
The CPI measures the price of a fixed basket of goods and services. That basket is updated every year, David, but just not often enough to account for those substitutions I talked about. So the CPI tends to show more inflation than the PCE.
When did the Fed switch its allegiance over to PCE?
Yeah, the CPI was the Fed's favorite before the year 2000. It switched over to the PCE because it's just a more comprehensive measure of inflation. It includes that substitution effect we talked about, where consumers change their buying habits when prices go up. And it's not just looking at what consumers spend. Pardon me, specifically, the Fed likes the core PCE, which strips out food and energy prices, which can be volatile.
Yes, indeed. Economic teachable moments are a specialty here. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer, thank you very much. Ahead of, what should we call it, PCE Thursday, S&P futures are up 0.1%. Dow futures are up 0.4%. NASDAQ futures are red, but just slightly. They're down 12 points. The U.S. 10-year interest rate is steady at the moment. The average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is down from a peak 10 days ago, still just above 7%, using Mortgage News Daily's numbers. Checking crude oil, up 0.5% this morning, just crossed above $82 a barrel. The big hiring report for August, plus the household survey of unemployment, is due tomorrow, with implications for markets, investors, and all of our paychecks, really. Catch the half hour of Marketplace later today with my colleague Kai Risdahl on many public radio stations, and on demand using these newfangled digital techniques I hear so much about. I'm David Brancaccio. You're listening to the Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.